Now, owners of local refineries in Nigeria, including the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, say they can help the country eliminate the importation of refined petroleum products in 18 months if the federal government works with their plans. The refiners, who spoke under the aegis of the Crude Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria, said that there are other refineries at different stages of completion to join the 650,000 capacity Dangote Petroleum Refinery. The Dangote Refinery has come under intense discussion lately, particularly with its couple with the NNPCL and the NMDPRA. Matters arising, of course, includes the following: crude supply shortages. The Dangote Refinery has been facing challenges in obtaining adequate crude oil supplies, which it claims has affected its operations. There are also regulatory disputes. The refinery has been involved in a dispute with the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority regarding the quality of its diesel production and issues related to importation of dirty fuels. There's also monopoly allegations. The refinery has faced allegations of attempting to monopolize the fuel supply in the country, which has led to concerns about energy security and market competition. Let's also talk about the quality of diesel. The NMDPRA has alleged that the Dangote Refinery produces diesel with higher sulfur content than imported diesel, which has been denied by the refinery. There are also investigations as regards this, as the Nigerian lawmakers have launched investigations into the allegations against the refinery, including claims of producing inferior products and frustrating the survival of the refinery. There's also the support from Manufacturers Association, that is MAN, which of course have expressed support for the refinery, stating that the unwarranted attacks on the refinery would discourage foreign investors. As all of this happens, further doubt is cast as regards how soon the issue of oil scarcity will become a thing of the past on Nigerian streets. Well, to discuss this further, I am joined on the program this evening by Olufemi Lawson, is the Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. He joins me live in the studio. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Looking at all of the back and forth, which I highlight, in my introduction, some of the challenges that the Dangote Refinery is facing vis-a-vis the quest that one day petroleum supply would be done internally as regards, being exported and all of that. But I would just like your immediate reaction to some of these issues before we move into specifics.
Well, fundamentally, it's a commendable thing that we are beginning to approach, the end of importation of, refined products from petroleum in Nigeria, especially when you look at what Nigerians have had to go through when it comes to the challenges occasioned by the shortage of supply of this product, particularly the PMS. That nonetheless, we must agree that this is a well-regulated sector. It is not an industry that can be compared to every other sectors of the Nigerian economy and society. And
you're talking about the PMS?
Yeah, the oil and gas sector.
Is it really well regulated?
It is, and that is why these issues are emerging. If it had been some of those sectors of our economy, for instance, food production, or other base, other social services, as the case may be, the depth of regulation may not have exposed the kind of issues that the controversy between Dangote Refinery and the regulatory authorities have exposed, especially when it has to do with how well our regulatory authorities are performing their duties. And I think one of the things that have brought this to fore is the fact that now we are beginning to see issues that have to do with how the regulators are trying to do their job and how the regulated, that is the industries, are trying to comply or challenge these regulations. In the case of Dangote, and of course the NNPC and the MDP.
Is it really a situation of the regulators trying to do their jobs, or personal interest here just, flying sway?
Well, I strongly believe that unlike other businesses that the Nigerian businessmen typically may have been involved in, particularly Dangote groups, which have been involved in the production of foods, cement and the likes. I think this is a very entirely different business environment. This is not spaghetti, it's not sugar. This is a well-regulated industry that has beyond just a single regulatory authority before, of course, the end product get to the society. So it is not unexpected that there will be issues along the line, of regulating this business. And these issues are already emerging.
I mean, one of those issues happened to be, what came out just a few weeks back, where the NMDPRA's boss, that's Farouk Ahmed, mentioned that the products from the Dangote refineries are substandard. Of course, he did highlight some other issues concerning, certification, having the right papers and all of that. And this sort of dealt a major blow on the, credibility of the process itself. And we've seen the owner, that's the chairman of that group, of the Dangote group, go on what some people have described, a media spree. Yeah. For younger persons, they will say maybe it's even time for him to start his own podcast, because of the amount of things he has said just, in the previous weeks. I would like to know your take on what the agency's boss, that's the regulator's boss, has said.
Well, I do not want to consider the statement of Mr. Farouk Ahmed as an outright condemnation of what Dangote is doing. The fact is that he's overseeing a regulatory institution mandated to, supervise activities, in that sector. And he did not totally condemn the essence of the refinery. And people must also understand that even the refinery itself is not, what is called the total completion of a refinery is not the physical infrastructure. Of course, there are stages from the stage of construction to commissioning, which is commissioning, meaning to start operation. And of course, even while operations begin in a refinery, there are 6 stages that this refinery must pass through. Mr. Ahmed, even though I don't want to speak for his agency or the NNPC, must have been referring to the fact that this refinery has not gone through the entire process, expected to certify that if refinery is completely, capable for, oil and gas operation. That nonetheless, we cannot but agree that this is a sector that is regulated to the extent that it is a very sensitive and critical sector. And the products are not just mere products, that government can, overlook in terms of standard. And if there are issues of standard or questions about the quality of product coming from such refinery, even though it's still a young, refinery just emerging, and I think it is in the interest of the country, and it is in line with the duty of that agency as a regulatory authority to let Nigerians know, or to let the public rather know, the quality of product. That it wasn't a total condemnation of the product. It would have been said that, they are not good for consumption. It was only about the quality, which has to do with, of course, some content in the production of diesel, particularly, which is what the Dangote Refinery is currently producing, from that refinery. That is its main product for now. So we shouldn't just wave it aside. We should be interested. And that should have, rather than resorting to a media, attack and counter-attack, call for deep, assessment and investigation where necessary.
All right. Let me, of course, invite Law Mefor, is a strategic communications consultant, to join us on this particular topic. Law, thank you for your time. All right. Thank you for joining us on Politics HQ on News Central Television. We understand that you are muted. Please kindly unmute your device so that we can hear you. Okay.
Thank you for hosting me.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Law, my opening question to you will be, what do you make of the statement by Mr. Farouk Ahmed, that's the NMDPRA's boss, with concerns as regards the quality of diesel from the Dangote Refinery? He also talked about certification issues, amongst a plethora of other issues he highlighted, and some Nigerians calling that he be removed or suspended.
Yeah, well, I don't subscribe to that approach to handling such a sensitive national issue. Yes, NUPRC is a regulatory body, and we can generally say that it's trying to do its job. But I really believe that alarming the Nigerian public and consumers about the quality of the diesel being produced by the Dangote Refinery is not the best way to go about it. It's a brand new refinery, and so many things are still undergoing calibrations and recalibrations. If the quantity of sulfur found in the Dangote diesel is above the threshold, you walk back channels and ensure that those things are taken care of. You query them, but such shouldn't be for public consumption, as far as I am concerned. That measure, that action taken by the NUPRC, for me, is the marketing of Dangote. That is what it is. And then it is not necessary. The $20 billion investment the man made in the critical energy sector ought to be seen from patriotic perspective, and the Nigerian nation ought to really take steps to help the Dangote Refinery to stand. And I want to believe that should be the reason NNPC made the initial 20% commitment, which we hear now we couldn't meet the financial obligations, and the value may have dropped to about 7.something%. You know, it's a major national intervention. So I don't know what the regulatory agency is trying to really achieve by making such a query a public issue, drawing media attention to it. For me, it is the marketing. That said, I also think that the NNPC as the modern agency in the petroleum sector in the country, you know, it's hiding too much from the Nigerian public. As far as I am concerned, Dangote is complaining specifically about not being able to access the Nigerian crude. And he says the IOCs are not selling to him. They prefer to prioritize the Asian and other markets outside Nigeria, and not really attending to him as they should. Oh, yes, I must agree. The international oil marketing organizations are producers. Yes, they are in business. They are capitalists and all that. But we are talking about Nigerian crude here. And if Dangote cannot get crude to feed his own refinery so as to help the local market here and cut off the issue of import, even if the price does not fall, let there be stability of supplies within Nigeria. You and I, if you stay in Abuja and Saito, you will see that as we speak now, there is no fuel in the filling stations. Very long queues everywhere, because there is no stability even in the home market. So the question now is, if Dangote cannot get crude, by the time we put the Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries in shape, how will they be able to access crude? It means that they also have to rely on Angola, Mauritius, the US, and others, because they cannot access crude within the Nigerian supply chain. This should worry everybody. And I believe that this is what these people are really pursuing, trying to present the Dangote Refinery as incapable, incompetent, and all that. That is not right. They should answer the question why Dangote can get crude. He has an installed capacity of 650,000 barrels per day refining capacity. That's right. That is what.
I mean, Mr. Mefor, I'm sorry to interrupt your line of thought, but there are also allegations, against the NNPC as regards, stifling competition. Some have even said that they are trying to be players at the same time regulators, in the system. I would like you to react on the operations of the NNPCL, being, if at all, a player and also a regulator at the same time, and also trying to stifle competition.
Well, they are enjoying monopoly here. NNPCL is enjoying monopoly, and that is what they want to maintain. And they know that the grand entry of Dangote Refinery will break that monopoly. And they are gaslighting the man and his refinery, making him to doubt even the investment itself, because he has gotten to the point of even challenging NNPC to buy him off and take over the refinery. That's the height of frustration. We need to see that from that perspective. NNPC is the sole importer of fuel in Nigeria. They import, they export, and they regulate themselves. Where does that happen? NNPC is the regulator, is the producer, the marketer, the supplier, the importer, the distributor, all round. That is not right. That is the reason nobody knows how many barrels of crude the country exports. Till date, nobody knows. Nobody can say it's what NNPC tells you that you take. And they go into these joint ventures with the same IOCs and sell crude to these IOCs in advance. They take money from them on behalf of NNPC itself, and by the federal government also, using crude to back the load. What this means is that you are selling your crude in advance. Even the loan taken by IMF, the last one we took was crude backed also. So by the time you remove the quantity of crude already purchased in advance by the IOCs, you are down from 1.5 million barrels a day, the average we produce at the moment. I'm not sure it is still up to that number now. But whatever it is, you'll be down to about 800,000, barrels available now. But when you now meet your loan obligations, what is actually left for the country, which I'm not sure many Nigerians know, what is actually left for the country in terms of foreign exchange earnings may not be up to 300,000 barrels at the end of the day. So you may be producing 1.5 million or even more, but what actually comes to you as a country is about 200 to 300,000 barrels, the amount I mean.
All right.
Now,
let me.
Now, the last line. That is precisely why they cannot supply Dangote crude, because they are already committed to IOCs and to the people from who they took loans. This has been going on for over 10 years. It didn't even start in the Buhari era. It predated Buhari era. They've been taking crude, forward sales of crude to take loans for the country. So if you have only 200,000 barrels left with you to sell in a day as a country, what makes you an oil producing country? Nothing.
All right. Let me leave you for a moment, Mr. Mefor. Let me come back to the studio right now. Olufemi, what do you make of these allegations against the NNPCL being, trying to stifle competition and also being a player and a regulator at the same time?
Well, I don't want to sound like speaking for the NNPC. I'm not their staff. But as a Nigerian, I think I've lived there enough to understand how some of this works. NNPC is not the sole regulator. In actual fact, a couple of years back, it became a company, operating business like every other entities, even though still owned by Nigerians. That nonetheless, we must understand that sometimes we don't have to be emotional about this. In this same country, Dangote is just a private business interest, just like every other. And I think it is not also correct, especially when, I think the media has a job to do in this. It is not totally correct that NNPC has not been supplying Dangote Refinery crude. NNPC have supplied Dangote Refinery crude even at a rate of about $1 cheaper than the market price. It is on record, saving the refinery itself about $30 million according to record. That's on one part. Another thing we must understand, to avoid being emotional, is the fact that this is purely a business interest. If tomorrow we even decide to start pushing all the crude to Dangote oil, as Nigerians, how is it going to be of benefit to us? It is very unfortunate that as an oil-producing country, we still rely on importation of refined product till date. But the truth is that for every other businesses that Dangote has been involved in, cement, sugar, and just to mention a few, how much of benefits in terms of pricing has it been to the average Nigerian? What are we expecting from Dangote Refinery that we didn't get from Dangote sugar, cement, and the likes? The truth is that Dangote is purely a private business interest. It should not be seen as, whatever controversy it's having with the regulatory authority, it should not be seen as an issue between the regulatory agencies and Nigerians. It's purely the regulatory agencies, doing its work as it should, and that the facts must be clearly stated. The truth is that NNPC is also in the business. The regulators are, of course, they have a duty, just like, expected, to regulate the heat Dangote or whatever. In your intro, you actually, said there is an association of refinery owners, which, of course, is just emerging to the best of my knowledge. It means NNPC has not been monopolizing. If NNPC has been monopolizing, how come do we not have refineries that are enough to have formed an association?
30 seconds, because we need to go on a break. Do you think that the NNPCL is providing a level playing field, across? It
is the same NNPCL that liberalized the sector, that allowed people like Dangote to build refineries and others in that association that you mentioned. If it is not the NNPC giving that go ahead, then how do we have those refineries coming on board that are enough to form an association?
All right.
Is there a monopoly?
Anyway, talking about monopoly, we would, of course, delve more on that, particularly on the side of the Dangote Group, when we come back from this break. Stay with us. Of course, if you're just joining in, this is Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are talking about matters arising around the Dangote Refinery and all of the recent drama surrounding it. I still have with me my guest. Olufemi Lawson is the Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. He joins me live in the studio. And I also have Mefor, who is the Strategic Communications Consultant. He joins virtually from Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. All right, let me go to you, Mr. Mefor, on this one. Now, let's talk about some allegation or some of the allegations, against the Dangote business itself. One of which stood out is the allegation of monopoly, right? Not just, about this refinery or oil issue, but even across business. Some have said that the Dangote Group has successfully, as alleged, monopolized, several sectors and even resulted in the demise of many businesses. I'd like you to react to this, even though Dangote actually did say in some public function that, look, it's business, it's a level playing field. The same opportunities that was availed of is the same opportunities that, was available to others. And, he just took advantage of these opportunities, to do the best he can for himself. I would like you to react to allegations of monopoly.
I want to say that we shouldn't try to mix up issues here. Yes, Dangote conglomerate has actually received a lot of concessions from Nigerian government, successive governments in the past, in many areas. They got tax holidays and waivers and all that. Yes, they did. And but I'm not aware that they did so in exclusion of others, or that federal government, in an attempt to prop up the Dangote conglomerate, deliberately frustrated others. I'm not aware of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It could happen, but I haven't paid attention to that. What I believe is the issue of this refinery, which I believe that is a major strategic intervention in our national economic life, which I believe that if it's better managed, better handled, we should be able to resolve even a domestic supply of fuel, PMS, crude, given to Dangote for us to yield up that success. That I am not seeing, and that is what is worrying me. And yes, Dangote himself, I believe, should have done more to really prevent what is going on now. At his level, he should know that the IOCs were buying Nigerian crude well in advance. So when his own refinery was nearing a completion, he ought to have thought about supply, and he ought to know also that the NNPC was no longer in a position to supply him at least 500,000 barrels to enable him be in business. I know that even if you sell to Dangote at the international price, if you remove the cost of freight, he will still have some marginal advantage, which can rub off on the country, apart from consistent and stable supply of a crude in Nigeria. He could also bring down the price, like he tried to do with the aviation fuel and even the diesel. So, compelling him to go to the US, to Angola, and to other countries outside, it means that he has to pay for transportation to bring in the crude to his refineries in Nigeria, and that will be passed off to all of us. That's my concern. And the advantages he has enjoyed from past Nigerian governments, for me, is beside is a conversation for another day. Because digging into that now will actually be a kind of gaslighting. And at the end of the day, people will mix up the general perception of how to even appreciate what is going on at the moment. I still believe that, given that the president is the Minister of Petroleum, he has to really step in. First, I have already acknowledged that
the president you said, given that the president is the Minister of Petroleum, if I got you correct.
Yes,
no,
yes,
that was in the previous administration.
They mean the president is the substantive Minister of Petroleum.
No,
he is.
We have a Minister of Petroleum.
He has ministers of state working under him. He is the Minister of Petroleum. That's a fact. It's not an allegation. He's the Minister of Petroleum.
Please go ahead.
Tinubu is the first president to assume that office. He started way back from the Obasanjo presidency. Obasanjo was Minister of Petroleum. Buhari was Minister of Petroleum. It was only Jonathan that appointed the Minister of Petroleum in the person of Desiani. So if the president is the Minister of Petroleum, it means that he wears double cap here, the president of Nigeria and the minister dealing with that ministry also. He should be able to intervene. We just have to find a way of getting Dangote to receive what he needs. Because if we continue this way, we have been clamoring that one of the conditions we need to alleviate the pressure on the Nigerian economy is the issue of the energy mix. And sitting on the top of the energy mix is the issue of fuel, transportation. That's a fact. The next is electricity. So if you don't resolve the issue of transportation, the issue of fuel, there is no way this economy will recover. And you see, we have often said that we want the local refineries to come on stream. Now, we are told that in August, in August, I'm right, that the Port Harcourt refinery will begin to refine. The question is, where is the crude going to come from? That is the issue here, and nobody's addressing it. And the issue of oil theft has not been properly addressed. I recall that early this year, the National Security Advisor, Ribadu, told the country that the nation was losing between 400 and 500,000 barrels of crude every day to oil theft. You know, if you understand the way the crude is loaded in Nigeria, some of these tankers would take up to 2 weeks to get filled up. And none of them can access Nigerian waters without clearance, without the permission and all that. So who gives the permission? Who is approving the lifting, the illegal lifting of crude? So what you have in Nigeria may not even be what you call crude oil theft. No, what I believe is at play is official sales and unofficial sales of Nigerian crude. And I take my bearing from the Abacha loots. When you hear about Abacha loots, which are still being recovered up till today, they are sales of crude oil, paid, you know, some paid into official account, some paid into unofficial account.
All right.
That is what is still going. Otherwise, how can the vessels access Nigerian waters? And
all right, Mr. Mefor, I'm sorry, I just need to interrupt you a bit so that we can allow Olufemi Lawson to react. Just, you know, to get the record straight here, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the Minister of Petroleum Resources. Heineken Lokobori is actually the Minister of State, you know, for petroleum resources there. Now, my question to you is this: allegations of monopoly, you know, against the Dangote Group, right? Some have said that, you know, his business style of practice too hasn't been fair, particularly to other business owners within, you know, the sector or even emerging businesses. I mean, for many, there are instances. I'd like you to react to that before we go to another grave allegation Dangote made against the NNPC.
I think even the Dangote Group itself would not deny the fact that it has been given undue advantages over even other competitors, even though you say it's a private business interest. We were all here, and the records are very there. Dangote was accessing foreign exchange, even in the course of building this refinery. How many of those competitors in the private sector had the same privilege of getting dollar from the CBN at the rate Dangote was getting it? So this company has had advantages over other businesses in the past. It is on record. So I don't think this is contestable. And the fact that it looks like this time around, this business has to be regulated the way it has to do, the way the regulators have to do, must have been one of the reasons why the company is raising an alarm. Because whether you like it or not in the past, if you look at other businesses that the company has been involved in, there has been undue advantages from the successive government in Nigeria, undue concessions from successive government in Nigeria to the Dangote Group. And I think it is not getting that this time around, and I think that's one of the reasons why. But for anybody to say it is business, everybody would have had the same access and opportunity, it is not possible because government has unduly in the past favored Dangote Group more than every other groups.
All right, I'll still stay on you, Olufemi. Now, Dangote also alleged that some NNPC employees have a blending plant in Malta, which is frustrating the local extraction and production of crude products. Even though we know that NNPC's NNPCL CEO, Mele Kyari, has denied owning, operating such. I would like you to speak on this because this is pretty grave. It's
grave and it has to be a subject of investigation, not by Dangote or the NNPC, but of course by the higher authorities. The president has a duty to investigate or commission an inquiry into such allegation coming from such, a personality of Alhaji Aliko Dangote. But I want to strongly believe, just like the MD of NNPCL have said, that it's also challenging anyone who has any proof that he or any other persons within the hierarchy of the company, NNPCL, have a blending plant in Malta. And he has also thrown it up that whoever is found to have been involved, irrespective of their hierarchy in the company, will be exposed. I think Dangote has to go further by mentioning names and exposing these persons. If truly it exists, we must not begin to play games with such very sensitive issues and grievous allegations. That has to do not only with business interests, but also our national economy.
All right. Well, at this point, we will, of course, go on a quick break. When we return, we will, of course, be looking at something pretty much pressing and might, to a very large extent, make headlines next week. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, this is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. Let's switch gears a bit. We will, of course, be talking about right now the planned protest for August, which a lot of Nigerians have started to react on. Now, of course, the idea behind the protest is to contest the hardship, particularly when it comes to basics that quite a number of Nigerians are facing. Now, this has elicited reactions from various quarters. Just this week alone, we spoke to the convener of the revolution, now talking about Omoyele Sowore, which of course did emphasize that the days of rage, according to him, would be a protest to let the government know what Nigerians are going through. And we've also seen where even security forces are saying they are very much going to be on ground to ensure that law and order is maintained, properties are not destroyed, even though agencies like the DSS is discouraging Nigerians from partaking, saying that it might be hijacked. Today, there was also, of course, a report by the IGP talking about the Inspector General of Police saying that, look, if you protest, we would need your information, your name, your address, basically details. So a lot of reactions coming back and forth as regards the August protest. And that is what we will be talking about at this time. I still have my guest with me, Olufemi Lawson, the Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability, and also Law Mefor is a Strategic Communications Consultant. Let me go to you, Mr. Mefor. Do you think that right now, even though Nigerians are going through a lot when it comes to the cost of living, a protest is a way to go or even the solution?
Yeah, well, I need to make a categorical statement here. Protest is not riot. That is one. Two, protest is an integral part of democracy. So those who are calling out Nigerians to protest the growing hunger in the land, they are merely exercising their democratic and civic rights. They shouldn't be shut down. And I'm happy the president himself acknowledged a few days ago that himself has been a protester. We are living witnesses to the protest himself called out and led in Nigeria, particularly in the Jonathan presidency. And they fear the apprehension that the protest being called now would end in violence. I wonder why we are not falling back on the history of the protest under Jonathan. No life was lost. There was no violence. None. No violence at all. The only life that was lost was caused by an accidental discharge by a policeman somewhere in Lagos. What that means is that Nigerians are capable of holding very peaceful protest. The NSAS protest was peaceful until government of the day brought in their thugs. We saw the videos of the thugs being dropped in government official SUVs. It's there, the video is everywhere, and as a journalist, I'm sure you must have seen. What that means is that even NSAS, in which people died, the death was caused by government. In Lagos particularly, it was someone that called in the army. That's the truth. He called in the army. That's a fact. The governor of Lagos called in the army, and the entry of army into a purely civil protest ended in death of some youths. Now,
even though the governor said, that's the Lagos State governor said, he has limited control over security, apparatus of the state, talking about the police, not even going as far as the army. But I think I should just leave you for a moment. Let me go to you.
Can I conclude my talk on that?
Okay, please. Please conclude.
Yes. Now, I have a problem with the way and manner the current protest is being called, just like the NSAS protest, the organizers are faceless. For me, it's cowardly. They need to come out so that we will know who we are dealing with. I think it's very important. They need to come out. They need to be known. Apart from Sowore and one or two others, I'm not aware of any other person that is frontally involved in the protest.
Okay.
And it's getting. So I do think, my last line on this is that what the police particularly ought to do is to map out the streets in Abuja, everywhere, the streets where the protest must follow, and deploy their men to guide the protesters through those streets.
All right.
Beginning from a point and ending in a point where they will address themselves and address Nigerians. Once that is done, the police will be in a position to apprehend whoever would want to hijack the process and cause mayhem.
Mr. Mefor, I may just need to leave you because we're pressed for time. Olufemi Lawson, what do you make of this planned protest? Is it the way to go? Do you think it would have any form of impact in ensuring that, the prices of things maybe eventually come down?
I think it's already, call alone is already making its impact, because for those who think it's unnecessary, I think the president himself has proven them wrong.
But are people's fear valid to say, or some individuals, their fear valid to say that, look, we saw what happened during NSAS. There was destruction, of property, loss of lives. We don't want a repetition. NSAS
was not the first time Nigerians came out to protest. Just like Mr. Mefor said, we were here in 2012 during occupied Nigeria. We were on the streets of Lagos fighting for democracy prior to 1999. There have been protests, even some led by people who are in government today. So protest remains the fundamental right of people. It's not contestable. The truth is that what we must oppose is any gathering that is initiated to unleash mayhem, violence. And I don't think there's anyone yet who is threatening violence as far as this preparation for the August protest is concerned. That nonetheless, we must see this as an opportunity to get government on its toes. You see, I listen to a lot of people, attacking the intention of Nigerians who plan to protest. But the truth is that if you follow the body language and even the statements of President Tinubu over the last couple of days, you'll come to realize that the president himself have admitted that there are grounds for Nigerians to protest, and that is addressed. If there are no issues, if there are no reasons to protest, the president will not admit that he's addressing the issues. Meaning there are issues, that the questions being raised by Nigerians are valid. And this protest, unlike some other, is not about maybe we are trying to recover the mandate of a person. Or this protest doesn't necessarily need a leadership. Everybody is hungry. Hunger has no tribe, no leader, no hierarchy. Petrol pump price has no hierarchy, no leadership. So these are general issues affect. Anyone could be a protest leader. You could be the protest leader within your family or your street. The truth is that the issues have to be addressed. The government, I think, must do more to engage the people by bringing out, not saying that we are aware or listening, by coming out with solutions that Nigeria should expect in the days coming.
But let's look at the solutions. Let's look at some of the solutions that have been, of course, the government has been forthwith, particularly in recent times. The minimum wage, the new minimum wage. Also, the student loans. I mean, we know that all of this fallout has been since the removal of the subsidy. And we've also seen, even though I'm not, so much in tune with that, and I'm not a fan of it, talking about palliatives, we saw distribution of food items and all of that. Does that not reflect, to a large extent, a government that is listening and may be willing to sort of do something about the current economic realities of many Nigerians? Yeah, the truth, you've just said the truth. The truth is that if this had been some couple of years back under Buhari, I'm very sure there were a lot of times workers were on strike in this country. Our universities were shut for 9 months, and the president never sat with anybody. He was rather constituting committee and sending ministers to engage with the labor unions and protesting workers and unions. Tinubu, as a president, has been making himself available. I'm not also a fan of distribution of foods. We must do what is
one will be more enduring. Moving forward, instead of distributing rice and gari to Nigerians as a palliative, the president must come up with measures that will return our people back to the farm. I'm not a fan of planting tomato in your backyard. That is not enough to address our food issues. I traveled during an experiment, I once mentioned it here, through Lagos to the southeast, to the south-south, back to Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, back through Kogi to Ekiti-Ondo, Oyo, and Lagos. And we realized in the course of that research that over 4,000 farm settlements have been shut. I'm not saying 4,000 farms. Each of those settlements sometimes contain 100 farms, 50, some 250 farms, have been shut down due to the insecurity in the country.
So is it
if we can return these people back to their farm, provide security and provide measures that can ensure food production, we don't need to start distributing rice and gari.
Do you think the policies or the moves or actions of the administration is prioritized? What do I mean? Right now, Nigerians are complaining that, look, basic items like food is becoming a luxury. And then we are seeing the government saying we want to build a coastal highway, want to buy a presidential jet. You know, rehabilitating projects that go up quite a lot of money. So is it in line to say that some of these moves reflect a misplacement of priority?
No, government must reorder its priority. You're very correct. Government must reorder its priority, especially with the current anger. Because except for very few who are very deceptive and are trying to paint a very false impression about the reality. The reality is that Nigerians are hungry. The president himself have come out to agree that there are challenges confronting Nigerians. Government must reorder its priorities and make sure that issues that will return food to the table of the average Nigerian is made a priority as far as policies and programs of the government are concerned. All right,
Mr. Mefor, if you're there, 30 seconds. What do you make of the actions of the administration, the long-term policies, short-term policies, medium-term policies? Do you think that all is in line, or the government needs to reorder its priorities?
I think that the two primary economic policies of the Tinubu administration are very wrong. The unplanned fuel subsidy removal and naira flotation. I don't believe that those two policies can be carried out the way and manner we are going about them now. I also don't think the two can combine. I also don't believe that the naira should be floated, because we don't have external reserves, we don't have an exported base. As we speak now, Nigeria export is still about 75% crude dependent. And out of that 75%, only about 25% of that comes back to Nigeria as a foreign exchange income. So you're not in a position to really float your currency. That policy must be suspended. I also think that government should, yes, a subsidy has come back to fuel, whether we like it or not, because if you look at the exchange rate and the cost of crude at the international market and all that, you will discover that the landing cost, added transportation and all that, that you can't sell fuel in Nigeria for anything less than 1,000 naira.
All right.
So if they're selling less, it means that subsidy is coming from...
Mr. Mefor, I'm afraid we need to go. I deeply apologize for having to interrupt you, but I'm made to understand that we are already really pressed for time. But gentlemen, once again, thank you for your time on the program. Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability, joins me live in the studio, and also Aloha Mefor is the Strategic Communications Consultant, joining virtually from Abuja. Once again, gentlemen, thank you for your time. And of course, this is where we drop the curtains on today's episode. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can also follow me personally on socials at Dapo Adegboye. The opinions of our guests remains theirs and not that of News Central. Good night.